name's Proby. I'm a Colorado Springs native, which is a strange thing because it makes me a unicorn. So I'm born and raised in Colorado Springs, and a local boy who is doing my best to have as strong an impact on my community as I possibly can. I certainly believe that being in community means a lot more than buying a house and living in a cul-de-sac. It means investing in the place and the people of which you live. That means investing in small businesses and investing in the public and government sectors, and investing in the individuals and the nonprofit sectors, and how do we have an opportunity to make the best investments that we can to positively impact all of us. Somewhere between 10 and 15 years of my life, I'd worked in employment services and education services and helped people find jobs. A couple of the more recent roles that I'd had prior to starting the Men's Xchange, I'd been the national director for career services for a for-profit college. And in that I had 20 schools in my purview and 7 states. And much like here in Colorado Springs, every single one of those communities had resources available to help women get dressed professionally at little or no cost. Those same resources didn't exist for men. So we saw a need in the community and tried to figure out how we could do that. And it didn't matter if I was trying to dress a student who was transitioning into a new career and a new life in Dallas or El Paso or New Orleans or Kansas City. The resources were not there for us to be able to help men get dressed professionally. And around the same time, I had heard of this brand new wave of business starting in America called social impact businesses. And social enterprise, social impact. And having listened to a presentation on it, I immediately thought that's what I want to do. So I'd spent several years of my life working in nonprofits and being on the board of directors for nonprofits. And one of the biggest challenges in the nonprofit universe is that it's trying to meet money versus mission. And in the nonprofit universe, you spend in most cases, over 50% of your time trying to find money to fund your mission. There are some massive nonprofits that have a lot more money than most of the nonprofits that are out there. But the vast majority of our nonprofits are constantly on this hamster wheel, trying to get enough money to stay relevant, to keep their doors open, but also to impact the lives of the people that they're trying desperately to impact. And most of the time, those funds are restricted. So you can only help this group of people with this money or this lot of people with this money. And too many times I've worked nonprofit programs when we've had to tell people, I know you're in need and I know it feels like this program should help you, but you don't qualify because of this disqualifying criteria. And it feels horrible to turn people away in their moment of need and tell them that they don't qualify for the help. And unfortunately, that's simply the way that grantors and the system is set up. So we started this business so that we could help those who couldn't help themselves, get dressed business and professionally, do so that it was at an affordable price. So we're about 1/10 the price of most clothing stores, and we'll go through our business model in just one second. But we wanted to also have a way that we had funds that were unrestricted so that we could help anyone. We could touch anyone's life that was in need in that moment without it being restricted, right? We wanted to make sure we had some space in there. So our business model, we focus exclusively on men's business and dress apparel. Everything in our shop has been donated. Everything goes out to dry cleaning. Once it's been cleaned and laundered, it comes back into our shop. Anyone in the whole wide world can shop here. Everything is $50 or less. So a full suit with us is $50, which is matching jacket, matching pants, same color, same dye lot, same material. Sport jackets don't have matching pants. They're meant to be mixed and matched. They add the most versatility to your wardrobe. Can be worn with a shirt and tie and becomes business professional. And can also be dressed down and worn with t-shirts or polo shirts and gives you a lot of flexibility in that. Sport jackets are all $40 here. Dress shirts are $10. Slacks are $10. We do full sizings and fittings with everyone, so we do all of your measurements. We write them all down on a sizing card. We give that back to you. So if you're shopping here or anywhere else, you're going to know what sizes you are. We date that, so if your body should happen to change due to one of the most entertaining and exciting pandemics I've ever been involved in my life, you'll know exactly where your body is or was at a specific time. And then we go through a fit session. So we talk with everyone exactly how a suit is supposed to fit, how a jacket's supposed to fit in the shoulders and the chest and the sleeve length, how pants are supposed to fit in the waist, the seat, and the pant length. We have 2 generations of men who have never been fitted for clothes in their lives. And you can see them as they're walking around wearing ill-fitted clothing because they've never had anyone, A, model that behavior for them, or B, instruct them as to how clothing is supposed to fit. So we do that with every single customer that comes through our front door. And then for every 9 or so people that shop with us, we can dress one person in our community at no cost. And those individuals are referred to us through our nonprofit partners, which include the Springs Rescue Mission and Mount Carmel Center for Veterans and the Pikes Peak Workforce Center and Inside Out Youth Services and the Independence Center. And we add 1 to 4 new nonprofits every quarter, and we have a committee that seeks them out and vets them. But our goal is to not replicate services, but to augment them. And we want to try and find all the spaces where collaboration makes sense and where we can figure out how we can remove clothing as a barrier to the next phases in your life. So we want to make sure that we take that piece out of it and allow individuals' talents and personalities and skill sets to shine. COVID was wonderful. It affected all of us, right? And I think we just got to start talking about it in terms of all the beautiful things that it brought to us. We've been really locked into all the terrible things that has happened, and we are acting in so many cases like petulant children, like we were the only ones that had to deal with this. And the reality is this is something that impacted the entire world. So one of the most amazing things about it is allowing us to understand how much smaller the world is and how much smaller the world is getting. And the fact that humanity runs across borders, it runs across lines, and it's something that interconnects and binds us all together. And in that is a great opportunity for us and for me to be able to think about how we can do things better and to change mindset to a little bit, right? So our business opened in 2017, and we had this month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year upward trajectory that was just growing. And then 2020 came around, and we were forced to close our doors. And obviously that has a huge effect on business. And when the entire workforce is told that they have to stay at home, that changes what happens in business and dress apparel. You can't attend concerts and weddings and balls and galas. And that has a huge impact on what we do and how we do it. And so I was telling myself this story of a downturn that we had in business for this chunk of 2020. And then I stopped and I looked around and I thought things over. And it came to a different space where we began to understand that there's so many businesses that did not make it out. There's so many businesses whose doors are closed forever. And we are so incredibly blessed to have lived through this drought and to flower on the other end, right? In so many ways, we are the rose that grew out of the concrete and continues to grow and to flourish in that space. And so that changes the way that our mentality works and the way we think about it. And that changes what we create and the throughput of this and the output of this. One of the best things that happened for us in that time frame is that people were at home for 6 to 9 weeks staring at their wardrobe, staring at their closet, right? And going through things and going, that doesn't fit anymore. I don't like that. I never wear that. People cleaned out so many things in their closet, which came to us. And we got this incredible cornucopia, this windfall, this bounty of clothing that is absurdly cool and ridiculously high end. So that's been awesome. We've got an inventory that has just exploded, and that's been great. And because we have a partnership with the Arc of the Pikes Peak region, they really do so many great things in our community, and they understand collaboration versus competition. Things that we can't use, polo shirts, jeans, t-shirts, athletic apparel, logoed apparel. We take all of that stuff, we take it to them. They count it, they give us in-store vouchers for it. They don't move a lot of suits. So we take suits and sport jackets from them. So we take items that are not high movers, high sellers from them, and we bring them into our shop where it is exactly what we do. We give them things that don't work for us, jeans, polo shirts, which are high need for them. Every time we do this exchange, they have this big jump and spike in men's sales. It's how do we take care of this entire community together better? So not only did our inventory go up, but their inventory goes up. The quality of stuff that we get to give to them goes up. The quality of stuff that we get to have in here goes up. All of that happens as a byproduct of COVID, right? It's a challenging time frame for everybody, but we all know that. And the option is, how do we figure out how to be better coming through this time frame? I really have to, and this is a me issue, I have to be better at asking for help, right? I try to think of myself as being resourceful and resilient, but I have to learn how to ask for help. And in that, we got some help. Some of the CARES Act funding helped us out so that we could continue to pay rent when we had no income coming in. And there was an individual that was there who literally helped me to fill out the paperwork so that it could get approved. She didn't have to do that, but that kind of help was completely invaluable and so not taken for granted. It's something that meant the world to me. We got done with that. We got approved. I sent her a handwritten thank you letter because it really did remove a great deal of pressure from what we get to do every day and allows us to continue to touch individuals' lives. In the major sense of what we need from the community, we have this wonderful symbiotic dance that we do with this community. When we run low on inventory, we can't just order more of it in, right? I can't just go to the warehouse and get some. So we need donations coming in. We are always, always, always in need of donations in small size clothing. Men's size 36 and 38 suits, which they only make this many of in the first place, are sizes that we are in desperate need of. But there is this wonderful dance that we get to have where our community brings us what we need and we get a chance to put it in the hands of other people who are in need of it, right? So the goal is not just taking care of those individuals who are in desperate need of clothing because they can't take care of themselves. That is a facet of what we do. But one of the major problems that I have with my hometown is the way that men present themselves, right? I mentioned earlier that I am from Colorado Springs, that this is my hometown, that this is where I choose to live. I have traveled throughout the country. I've worked in several communities, and still this is the place that I always go. That's where I want to be. And I love it. But in that, there's some things you wish you could change, and one of those is the way that the men in our community dress. And the men in our community dress, it is such a nightmare. It goes well beyond a train wreck, right? Fashion in Colorado Springs means that if you're going out to dinner at McKenzie's Chop House or the Warehouse, you should probably also have on a good sturdy pair of hiking shoes because you might take on a 14er right afterwards. It's asinine. It is absolutely asinine. When men go out on dates or out to drinks, they put on their good hoodie. It is insanity. So we want to help our community and the men in our community and those who identify as male dress better, present themselves better, for themselves, for their significant others, for this community, to show up in spaces and hold down that space in a different way. And they also get to impact those individuals who can't dress themselves. It's amazing what happens when you start thinking of the word and instead of or. When you stop placing things juxtaposed and you start figuring out how they can co-align. And we started trying to figure out spaces where we could do this and that and this and that. And that's what ended up being in that space. We need our community to show up and shop, and not just shop here, but shop local, shop small, support our local economy. For $9 out of $10 you spend at a local business, they stay inside your community. $9 out of $10 stay inside your community. When you shop at big box stores, $9 out of $10 leave your community and are not impacting your community. And when you buy it on Amazon, nothing stays in your community. Nothing is here. So when you start worrying about the roads crumbling, the infrastructure going away, there's no pay for teachers, there's nothing in the school district, all of those things, and you've bought everything on Amazon, you're to blame. You are to blame. When you're constantly sitting in line for an hour and a half for an In-N-Out burger, when there are amazing hamburger places and restaurants that are locally owned and operated, you're to blame. You can't turn around and say, how come we don't have anything cool? We've got cool stuff. We just have to support it. And we get a chance to help that grow. And we get to foster and incubate other people of going, hey, my community is going to support this. My community is going to do this. And we get to have really cool, kitschy places. Spaces where you can not go to a Hallmark store. There's nothing wrong with a Hallmark store, but it's not Ladyfingers Press, which is super cool and local, right? So you get a chance to do those things. Buying local is how you can help us, right? Thinking about us when you need to buy clothing and apparel, that's how you help us. And it allows us to be able to invest in this community in a different way. Ask all the time about Milton Proby and the Milton E. Proby Parkway and how that came about. So as I said before, I'm a local boy born and raised, and I come from a family of individuals who are invested in the community. So my mother taught in School District 11 for 36 years and is certainly one of the first African American instructors there, and in my opinion, the first. There's a little bit of history that goes along with that. But my father pastored the same church for the last 47 years. He passed away in 2005. But beyond pastoring that same church for 47 years, my father was also our state's leading authority on civil rights. So during the 50s and 60s, my dad was friends with Dr. King and was deeply engrossed in the civil rights movement. He was our state's leading authority on the issue. He was the first chair of the Civil Rights Commission for the state of Colorado. He was the first chair of the Human Rights Commission for the state of Colorado. He was the first civil rights advisor to any governor in the state, and he held that position for 4 different governors throughout our state. They flew the flag over the nation's capital for him on 2 separate occasions. So his impact in the community goes well beyond what he did inside the church, but is also a civic and social leader that was dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion long before it became a popular statement. So getting a road named after him was pretty monumental. Initially, my father tried in the early 80s to get Fountain Boulevard renamed Martin Luther King Boulevard, and it failed in city council, and our city refused to acknowledge that and continued to refuse to acknowledge the achievements of Dr. King for decades by anything in our community. Then years later, as my father was ill, we were trying to get Fountain renamed Milton E. Proby, and that also failed. And it brought about a great deal of hostility and animosity in the city, and we're talking 2005. Luckily enough, we had a couple individuals in our city who really wanted to figure out how they could champion the achievement of ethnic minorities and women in our city, and they wanted to realize how they could tell the story of individuals that have made our city prosper who were not exclusively white male landowners, which is what the vast majority of the city acknowledges as its foundation. And we're grateful for it. So now people fly in and out of the airport on what was one of the largest transportation projects in our city's history, and they get a chance to ask the question of who was this guy and why is there a street named after him? And that's what that was about. That's what that backstory falls into. I don't view other businesses that are in the same space with us as competition. I am way more interested in the spaces of collaboration. Competition leaves the mindset of scarcity, that there's not enough. And that is one of the biggest misnomers that we have as a people, as a culture, as a planet. There's more than enough. We just need to realize that in the mindset of abundance, we can take care of everyone. We choose not to, right? So there's not competition in this space. There are spaces that operate businesses that are in slightly different areas. We've got 2 more men's clothing stores on the same street that we are on. And they do similar things that we do. They charge a lot more money than we do. They offer a different service than we do. But we're not in competition with anybody. We're in competition with how the competition, if there is a competition, is how do we get better in serving this community? And how do we make our community better? We've had several businesses, men's clothing stores that have left who have not had a social enterprise or social component or a give back piece in what they do. One of the new clothing stores that has come into town or that has been started in town as a local business has a social impact piece involved in that. So if we lost 3 businesses that did not invest in our community that same way, and we gained one that does, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Additionally, when we think about how we can be collaborative, we asked several other nonprofits and thrift stores if they wanted to collaborate with us on clothing items we can't use. And the roadblocks that we ran into was disappointing and saddening and hurtful. But we got involved with the Arc of the Pikes Peak region, and they are the absolute perfect business partner. They've been amazing. They are truly interested in investing in this community, and in doing so, this collaborative space that we've created and worked together is so awesome. And it really does speak to what we can do when we are constantly trying to lift each other up rather than tear each other down. The collaboration and the collaborative efforts that we can do as a community, as businesses, really stands to make sure that we understand the abundance mindset and that there is more than enough. There's more than enough to go around. There is more than enough for abundance for everyone. We simply have to choose it. Our busiest times of year, July is typically what you would think of as a slow month in men's business and dress apparel. You don't have a whole lot of people running out buying suits in the middle of July. Like the 4th of July weekend is normally pretty quiet. People are trying to get to the mountains and to the lake and barbecues, and buying a new suit is not high on the agenda in that time frame, right? But with that said, we do a pretty brisk July. November's, as crazy as that is always a very busy month for us. Decembers are typically slow for us. People are normally out buying gifts for other individuals. They're not buying clothing for themselves. And then January, which is normally the slowest month of the year for any retail establishment, we go through the roof. Things get insane again. We get really busy in April and May as we move into prom season and graduation season and college graduation, college dances, high school dances. We really take off in that space as well as those individuals who are leaving those educational environments to actually move into new work environments. Like all of that happens in that April to June time frame. So that ends up being a very busy time frame for us as well. say that about the Men's Exchange is there's a misnomer that we sell clothing, and we do sell clothing, but that's not what we're in business to do. We actually sell confidence. Our goal is to make sure that when you walk out of here, your chin is a little higher, your shoulders are back a little more, your chest is out a little further, that you look upon yourself with fresh eyes in the mirror because you see yourself as a different person. That is one of the things that we do, and that's what we get the joy of doing every day. When I think about what we want individuals to know about my father, it is about my father, but more so about the communities of color in Colorado Springs. That Colorado Springs has absolutely been built by General Palmer, but that was not an exclusive space. That we have had Latino and Chicano communities that have invested heavily in Colorado Springs, that the Native American community has invested heavily in southern Colorado, that African American communities have worked incredibly hard to create an everybody welcome mentality here. And my father is a piece of that, and I'm a piece of that, but it is trying to make sure that we get a better understanding of the diversity, of the equity, and trying to become inclusive in understanding our shared history, our shared story, and how do we continue to allow that to proliferate and move forward into the future, right? How do we create not end results that are the same for people, but better starting lines so everyone has an opportunity to allow their talents and skill sets and passion and desire and work ethic to show without having obstacles placed there that they didn't need in their path. I think that's more so what I'd be interested in our community, learning about what we're trying to do and what we get to achieve often, and the things that I know my family has worked for, my mother, my father, and throughout the rest of this community. So it's funny, it's only through this conversation with you that this whole thing became really bright and clear in my mind. Before we had a physical shop, before we opened our doors at all, we had an individual who was sent to us, which was the first guy that we ever dressed. And he was pretty much the poster child of the people we wanted to help, right? He was coming out of homelessness. He had been a cancer survivor, had recently been divorced, was dealing with addiction recovery, and had been clean for, I think at that point, 2 years. But was an artist and was directing his energy towards his artwork, and started managing and running an art gallery in town. And during First Friday art walks, it was brought to our attention. He was like, look, man, I don't have any dress clothes, and I look like a homeless person as I'm showing people our gallery, and I can't look like that. And so before we had a shop, we went out and acquired some stuff and dressed this guy. And the backstory of that is that he ends up becoming one of the top 50 to watch in the city. He shoots the Mayor's Cup. He gets voted best of the Springs in 3 or 4 different categories. We had zero impact on his talent, on his skill set. He was still the same human being. We just changed the way that he was viewed through the community. And then what felt like tragedy hit us when the old building that we were in got sold, and the new owners came in and told us that, and I'm going to use the quote because I don't want to put words in somebody else's mouth. One of the new owners said to us, "We are not interested in retaining your business." And that really felt like a gut punch. And so we kind of absorbed that blow and started looking. And as we started looking, the space that we're in now came available. And we knew we couldn't afford it. It was way more than we could afford. So we kept looking. And our realtor came back to me several weeks later and said, "James, the place that I first showed you on Tejon's available. I really think we ought to take a look at it." And I said, "Dude, we can't afford it." He said, "Well, I've set up a meeting with the owner of the building. Let's sit down and talk." And so we came in, we sat down, we toured the space again, this space, and we sat down and talked with the owner. And he said, "I like what you're doing and I like the plan. Let's work it out." And We did. And that day, I went straight from this location back to our old shop, put up a sign, said we're closed, we're moving. Came down here and immediately started trying to pack up clothes and work things over. And as we started building this, it took 90% of the funds, greater than 90% of the funds that we had in our checking account, to clear out the deposit and first month's rent. It was a step into the abyss. It was walking down a flight of stairs without seeing the next stair tread that you're going to put your foot on. But it was a leap of faith. And it ended up being the best thing in the world for us. Before we could get open, we had suits laying in bags on the floor, and we didn't have a sign up, and we had people walking by trying to walk in the door and buy suits from us. Our business expanded because of the location of being downtown. None of that would have happened if it weren't for someone telling us that they were not interested in retaining our business. And I understood in that space that birds have to deal with the uncomfortability of being shoved out of the nest, of doing what they don't want to do so they can stretch their wings and fly. And once they fly, they can fly anywhere in the world. They can cross oceans and seas and lakes. They can relocate to any place they want to go. They can literally see the world from a different perspective, but they have to deal with that moment of being uncomfortable and shoved out of their nest. We had to deal with that space of uncomfortability and being shoved out of that nest so that we could stretch our wings and grow and understand what this business could be, how it could be impactful, and how it could grow. But it had to come with someone telling us, we don't want you here. When those moments come in your life, realize that it's not the end of your story, it's the pivot point. And that's where we pivoted, and that's how we had an opportunity to grow. We're in the store, and we are trying to get set up, and we're telling individuals they can't buy things with us, when I get an email and a phone call from one of our business partners at Springs Rescue Mission. And they say, James, we got 6 individuals that we need to get dressed. And we need them dressed at no cost. And I'm thinking, we don't have any money in our savings, and we're trying to move into a new location, and everything is literally laying on the floor, and I don't know where all the stuff is. And we said yes. We reached for yes instead of no. And in that, our first customers in this space are 6 guys who are residents at the rescue mission that we had an opportunity to dress at no cost. None of which are residents of the rescue mission any longer, right? We dressed them up. We did the photo shoot with each one of them, and it was awesome. It was incredible. But it is realizing, again, if you have a lack mentality instead of an abundance mentality, if you have a scarcity mentality, you try to hoard things that are meant to go out to the entire universe. And because we took care of the first customers in this store were individuals who could not afford to pay for anything, we dressed them at no cost. Our business has grown exponentially because of it. It's amazing. And the first individuals we dressed as a company, we dressed at no cost. And the first individuals we dressed in this location, we dressed at no cost. And I know that their lives have been positively impacted. I know each one of them is working and has moved into places of residence. And I still feel like I got more out of that than they did.